So we're in the third week of this Avatar series. Have you been enjoying the Avatar series as much as I have? Thank you. I love to put it in context of where truth is. And as I said in the very beginning of this, for me, it's what builds my faith. It builds my confidence that there is absolute truth. And that we can, no matter what's going on around us, we can hang in there and hold on to it. I think that's what absolute truth does. And for me, anything that doesn't fit that bill, I throw it out and say it's just noise. Let's move on and find more what truth is. But today I think you're going to see it in a context of time, which is also important to understand where we are as New Thought, as unity, and where we are even in the United States with the whole Christian movement here in the scope of the world evolution of consciousness or spirituality. And the reason I even started this is this is a premise that I had, and this is kind of what's been driving me, is if God is truly omnipresent, present everywhere, and is all wisdom and knowledge, then it needs to have shown up. And I think through what we've looked at with Shankara 1,200 years ago, with what we are looked at last week, with Lao Tzu from China 2,600 years ago, and now we're going to look at really old in comparison. So we talked about Shankara. The reason why yoga, being the union with God, is the meaning in Sanskrit of non-dualism, is the union with God through oneness. And that's not only oneness with the divine, but oneness within yourself and oneness with all living things. He ended his 32 years on the planet and basically summed everything he learned up in that one phrase. After everything I studied, I am he. Which is exactly in alignment with what Psalm said, King David, and what Jesus taught 2,000, 3,000 years later. Is it not written that ye are God, little g, or God flowing through you? So we're seeing connections. This came from India many, many years after Jesus was on the planet saying the very thing, and thousands of years after King David wrote in Psalms. Last week we talked about Lao Tzu in China 2,600 years ago, and his words he used was staying in the flow. So much so that at the end of his teachings, before he rode off into the northern woods of China, he was on the water buffalo backwards. In alignment with what Jesus taught, take no thought for your life. Take no thought for what you eat, what you drink, what you put on your clothes. Take no thought for your life. Get in the divine flow. I don't know about you, but that's a level of trust. That's huge. And it's easy to talk about, but it is not easy to implement on a day-to-day basis. But again, 2,600 years ago, stay in the flow. Stay in the Tao, T-A-O, he spelled. So the teachings of Krishna come basically out of the Bhagavad Gita, but the Bhagavad Gita is 18 chapters that started way back, and I'm not even going to attempt that Sanskrit name because I know I won't do well with it. 6,700 BC, obviously at that time it was an oral tradition, but the teachings of spiritual truth, you add 2,000 to that, we're looking at 8,700 years ago. 8,700 years ago, some of this was already being taught on the planet. And you know, we get all puffed up in our spiritual arrogance and think we know it all. And boy, look at us, we're so smart. There is no new truth, as King Solomon said. There's nothing new under the sun. I say this all the time, one truth, many voices, and we're seeing the same thing happen. So out of this very scripture, Hindu scripture that was written so many thousands of years ago, we're going to begin to see some of the teachings that Krishna had. Obviously, the 18 chapters are so loaded that I only could pick out a few that align with what we're doing. The Bhagavad Gita, or Gita as it's called many places in the world, means in Sanskrit the Song of God. It's really almost a musical of God. And we're going to talk quickly about the characters and the setting of where this incredible teaching lies. And I think it will help you understand, and also the direction that's given to listen to the musical or to the Song of God. Gandhi said this: the Bhagavad Gita is the difference between the light and the darkness. It was his go-to place. In fact, he said this: when disappointing times happen in my life, I simply open the Bhagavad Gita and look for a verse here and there, and it brings a smile back to my face. And I put this up here because you and I all need our go-to place. Whatever book that is, whatever scripture that is, whatever holy word it is, we need a place to go back to in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, when disappointment sets in. And that's what Gandhi was talking about. That's what the Gita was for him. Krishna was born in 3228 BC, 5,000 years ago. I want to put that in context with Moses out of the Old Testament. Moses was born around 1600 BC. Abraham closer to 1,000. So when you're looking what's happened almost 1,600 years before Abraham, or before Moses, this was happening in India when Krishna was born. And through his life and the teachings and there's so many differences on how long he lived, but most people think it was somewhere around 120 to 125 years on the planet. Again, coming out of India and coming out of the Hindu tradition. Krishna consciousness in Sanskrit stands for the only begotten Son. We have heard that phrase before, have we not? And I want you to just look at the difference between Krishna and Christ. Very similar use of words, but thousands of years before Jesus even walked on the planet. And why the importance of time? Because I think in the West, and especially in Christianity, we kind of thought we had all the answers. And I just want to put it in that context of time of what was going on separate from what was happening in the Middle East at that time with Moses, Abraham, Isaac, and on up to Jesus when he walked 2,000 years ago on the planet. Why was his skin blue? Similar story. A demon tried to kill him when he was born because he saw the light in him. No different kind of than the story of Jesus having to be taken to Egypt because the king was trying to kill him. You see many similarities here in the stories. He didn't die, but what happened was his skin turned blue, according to the story. Why always shown with a flute? The flute represents our human heart. And as we begin to empty ourselves of our ego, of our humanness, the reed within the flute can begin to play the cosmic music of divine love. But as we start out in our humanness and in our beliefs and duality of good and bad, the flute is shut off. And it's the work that you and I get to do that opens that flute and allows the cosmic music to play. Why the peacock feathers on the head? Peacock feathers represent beauty and wisdom. And it's what happens to you and I when we allow our heart to begin to rule the head, versus how we've been taught to let the head rule the heart. Our heart knows what divine love is, but our head has to set expectations, or we have to define it. And what Krishna represents here is as we get connected back to Lao Tzu in the flow of the divine, we get our system within us rearranged so that the divine love is flowing from our heart out and begins to affect our head, and therefore the peacock feathers, as love begins to govern your life and my life. So there's two actors in this scene, this story, Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna represents the spiritual side, Arjuna represents the human or the ego side. So there's this conversation in this song to God, or in this musical, back and forth from Krishna and our soul talking to our humanness, or our ego, or rational human mind. So as you, and what you're invited to, if you'd like, as we go through the teachings today, don't hear them as Krishna to Arjuna. Hear them as your soul to you. That's the power of the Gita. That's the power of the Bhagavad Gita, is that you begin to interpret what's being taught as guidance for yourself as we go through our days. So it's set, the whole scene of the 18 chapters is set in this battlefield. And again, it's a Sanskrit name I'm not going to attempt today. We'll call it the Battle of K. But the Battle of K is not about a story of a battle out there. This represents the battle that's within you and I. We have two cells. We have a little s and a big S. Or we have two eyes, a little I and a big I. This is about the battle that goes on within every human being to who's going to run life. Is it going to be the human, the ego, or is it going to be the spiritual and the soul? And as we look at these teachings back and forth, and this is one of the really important distinctions that I make. When you look in the context of spiritual development of consciousness, and when Moses and Abraham came out of Egypt, they kept the God of duality, did they not? The whole Old Testament teaches, and so does Judaism, teaches that God is the God of karma, is the God of good and bad, of duality. You'll be blessed, you'll be punished. What they held in the East is that the divine is within you, and you as a human being determine duality, good and bad. We saw it last week in Lao Tzu with Wu Chi. Wu Chi had no good or bad. We have the same thing in the teachings of Jesus, is that the kingdom of God is within you and it's only good. So as we watch what happened in the evolution of religion, out of Abraham and Moses came Judaism, and out of Judaism came Christianity and Islam, because Abraham was the father of all three. But all three kept the God of karma. That God saw good and there was a Satan or a devil was the bad or evil. What the East said, no, that's never been the way. It's oneness with the divine, and we choose out of the decisions we make in the battlefield whether we're going to have good in our lives or we're going to have not so good. Great distinction. Then Jesus comes along 2,000 years ago and began to teach the Eastern one God, no duality. And you and I make the decisions about whether we're going to live in heaven or we're going to live in not heaven on a daily basis. And that stayed for 300 years, was the teaching of Jesus, called the way. And then when the Romans decided to make Christianity not only the religion, but also the state religion, which began the Roman Catholic Church, which kept the God of duality. And when the Protestant Reformation came, the Protestants kept the God of duality, of good and bad. So what's running counter in the evolution of human consciousness is these two very different concepts. And as you and I go to a place of oneness and begin to learn this, teachings that Jesus had, or Krishna had, or Lao Tzu had, or Shankara had, where there's one God and it's only good, and that you and I make the decisions of how our lives live, that is where we're now seeing a revolution in consciousness and spiritual consciousness throughout the world. The Oneness Day now has almost 1 million people coming together. And it doesn't matter what religion you were raised under, it doesn't matter what you practice, but we're seeing that, to me, is why I'm so excited about the trajectory of what's happening in the human life. Because the kids coming in today are coming into a different consciousness than you and I came into. They don't have to go through all of this old teachings that have proven out not to be true. So I took 11 lessons from Krishna. I could have had 111, but I didn't think you'll all be here until we get through all. I don't know if I'd make it through 111. So I offer you this. Listen to these words as though they're coming from your own soul speaking to you. Whatever happened, happened for the good. Whatever is happening for the good. And whatever will happen will also happen for good. Does this not overlay or parlay with Jesus' teaching of be anxious for nothing? How can you be anxious if you believe this in your soul? You can't. You can have no fear. As you can see in here, it says, what are you afraid of? What are you worried about? If you truly believe there's only good to happen, happening, and will happen, there's nothing for you to worry about. But all of us, well, I'm just going to say for me, I was taught to worry. Be anxious. There's a boogeyman out there, you better be ready kind of stuff. No, that's not true. And we're seeing it time and time again through all of these avatars and the teachings of Jesus that we are to be anxious for no thing. No body, no thing. Let's go to number 2. You have the right to work, but never to the fruit of the work. Ooh, what does he mean by that? You should never engage in action for the sake of the reward, nor should you long for inaction. And this is back to what Lao Tzu and Shankara were talking about, the action of non-action. The understanding of it's okay to be, and out of the beingness and in the flow of the divine, things get done in perfect order. Again, that's a level of trust, of dropping worry and dropping fear and dropping that I'm not good enough, as Lao Tzu said last week. You are enough. How many of us this past week began to think on different subjects that we may not be enough? It's not true. You are enough. And as we get into the flow of understanding the divine within coming through us, Jesus' teaching was, and it'll go in front of you and straighten the path. Light up the path. Let's go on. We heard this in the last 2, haven't we, about change. Change is the law of the universe. No one has said it was a law until now. Change is the law of the universe. You can be a millionaire or a pauper in an instant. It's going to change. Tomorrow will change. Unity of Harrisburg will change. Everyone you live with will change. The country will change. The world will change. It's the law of the universe. And as we learn to graciously change, what happens? We begin to live in peace. You can fight against it. You know, I think I said this the other week. The only human being that likes change is the baby. But we have to change that belief to be able to graciously accept the changes as they're coming. And let me tell you what's happening, folks. Change is coming faster, is it not? As we globalized and got everyone in the world together with the internet, change is happening at nanosecond speed. And it will not slow down. It's going faster and faster and faster. And you and I are either in alignment with that understanding or we are falling behind. Because change is happening everywhere around us. You can read in there, it talks about all these different things that are coming towards you. But it will always change, no matter what. Let's go on to number 4. The soul is neither born nor does it die. You and I are eternal. our soul and spirit never die. Jesus' teaching was, I am before Abraham was the connection of this teaching there. All the great avatars taught the same. Let go of this. Remember Shankara called what's happening in the physical around you, call it Maya, or an illusion, or hypnosis, or a mirage. And yeah, I'm going to drop this suit, physical suit, when its time is finished on this planet. But my soul never dies. And this understanding, this teaching that is so thousands of years old, allows us to drop the number one fear of all humans is death. There is no death in our soul. We are eternal, immortal, and we continue forever. A couple of weeks ago in the oneness thing, I showed the scripture that said, glorify me as I was with you before the worlds were created. You are eternal, you've been here forever, and you're going through, and what's happening now is more and more people on the planet, because of the consciousness change, are beginning to understand this is true. And when this becomes true, all wars go away. Because no longer can you kill anyone. Because no one dies. And there's no sense then for war. And this is a whole slide on the soul. It never dies. Never is born. It was created in the beginning. You and I were. And will always be. Number 5. This is 5,000 years old. You came empty-handed, and you will leave empty-handed. Bill Gates will leave $60 billion behind. Came in without it. He's going to leave without it. But what he's going to leave with is his soul, just like you and I are. And here again, we came empty-handed, and we will leave empty-handed. What is yours today belonged to someone else yesterday. The 60 billion Bill Gates had belonged to a whole bunch of people before that. And when he's gone, that money will go on to someone else, will it not? So you come in empty-handed, you leave empty-handed. What is eternal is the soul, and it's another understanding of this illusion of Maya, of this mirage, of this physical, is what's eternal is the spirit side. Our soul is telling us this in so many ways. What is the number one thing that people say they want in their life? Peace. Where? In their soul. Not peace in your mind, because that comes and goes, does it not? It fritters by. Oh, I'm peaceful. I'm not peaceful. How did I get from there to there in nanoseconds? It happens all day long. But the peace in our soul is what everyone is looking for. Throughout, I don't care what religion, I don't care what race, I don't care what culture. Number one. It's interesting in the Bible and also in the Gita, whenever they repeat things, it's meant for importance. And you're going to see this is repeated at least 5 or 6 times. Lust, anger, greed are the 3 gates to self-destructive hell. Where is hell destructive? Where is it created from? Here. And then Krishna, or our soul, is talking to us over and over again. If you are locked in any one of these, lust, anger, and greed, you have created your own bondage. You are in your own hell, your own prison. And he repeats it over and over again. There are 3 gates to this self-destructive hell. Lust, anger, greed are the 3 doors to hell. And it goes on and on and on. So what our soul is saying to us, look inside. Look in your consciousness. Where are you locked in anger? Where are you locked in greed and lust? And let those go. Just as Lao Tzu said last week, don't look at that anymore. Release it. Let it go because it's not true. Jesus called it an appearance. Do not judge by appearances of this stuff. Do not get entangled in it. Resist not, he said. Put away your sword. It's not your battle. Let it be. Number 7. Man or woman is made by their belief. As you believe, so are you. We've heard that before, haven't we? Over and over again. It doesn't matter who the teacher is of truth. We are our beliefs. Where are our beliefs? Our beliefs make up our consciousness. We live out of our consciousness. If our consciousness is upset, it's in discord, it's disharmony, you're going to have the very same thing mirrored back to you in your affairs. But if you're in peace and you're in love and joy, you're going to have the same thing. No matter what's going on around you, you will not be moved by the appearances of the upset. You can only be upset if you're upsettable. And if you're not upsettable, it doesn't matter what anybody does around you. You control that. That's how powerful we are when we grab it and consciously begin to implement it. Don't use your energy in worry or fear or anxiety. Use your energy to believe the truth. The absolute truth. Number 8, when meditation is mastered, the mind is unwavering like the flame of a lamp in a windless place. Steady. Not moves. The flame doesn't get upset. Doesn't get angry. It stays centered in the divine. Unmovable. Number 9. I love this one, because I don't know that it's ever been quite told like this. And listen to your soul telling you this. There is neither this world nor the world beyond, nor happiness for the one who doubts. Puts it right out there in front of us, doesn't it? How much time are you spending doubting your truth? How much time are you convinced? How much time are you in confidence that what is true for you is affecting the good in your lives? Or not? We choose. And you can see it again back in the battle. Battle between our ego, humanness, and our spirit and our soul. Number 10. We're kept from our goal not by obstacles, but by clear path to a lesser goal. How many of us have not achieved something we wanted in life and we began to blame the obstacles? Well, it may have been my parents, may have been my environment. Oh, I didn't go to the right school. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. It's never the obstacle. What happened is you took your goal down. Say, well, you know what? That's too much work. I'm going for this one. Did you do it consciously? Probably not. But it's somewhere in your subconscious you said, I'm willing to settle. And I'm not going for the goal. I'm going to stay here. It's comfortable. It's safe. We don't miss it by the obstacles that show up. We miss it by bringing our goal down and settling for something less. And number 11, a person can rise to the efforts of its own mind or draw himself down in the same manner. Because each person is his own friend or enemy. We have heard that again and again and again. Each one of the avatars is teaching the very same thing. That what's going on in your mind will determine whether your mind is friend or foe. And here's another saying it has, is our mind, we determine whether it's friend or enemy. A man or a woman is made by their beliefs. As they believe, so they become. Again and again we've heard this. And this is about fear. There is no fear. Because it doesn't exist unless you have fear in your mind. And then it will manifest. Right? We heard that in the Old Testament. What happened to me? Everything I fear came to me. Right? Fear will bring that energy to us. Fear not. Be anxious for nothing. And this is said in a way that's never been said. He who has no attachments can really love others, For this love is pure and divine. It's the attachments, it's the entanglements, it's the expectations that we put from the human ego that gets in the way of allowing our hearts to love divinely. And last in this is never let your inner mental peace be disturbed by external circumstances. How many this week allowed external circumstances to affect your inner peace? Yeah. We've gotten trained to do that, have we not? And every one of these teachers are saying over and over again, do not engage in that. Jesus called it an appearance. Don't judge it. Stay in your right thinking. Shankara called it Maya, the illusion, the mirage. Lao Tzu said, don't even pay no mind to it. Stay in the flow. And that's where the peace lies. I was going to end today, I was going to share something I've never shared in public before, some may or may not know. I was studying under Roy Eugene Davis, who was one of the last disciples of Paramahansa Yogananda. Some of you attempted the autobiography of yoga book. It was about that big. And Roy, I was looking at the possibility to become a minister in their process, and for one of Jacqueline's birthdays, Roy attuned both of us to Kriya Yoga. If you go to the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4 and 5, it talks about Kriya Yoga. And Kriya Yoga is a piece of Raja Yoga, which is considered the royal yoga, the highest yoga of ways to get connected with the divine. God realized, or self with a capital S realized. And this technique is called by one of Paramahansa's gurus, it goes back thousands of years ago. He called it baby Kriya. It's a little bit of the beginning of Kriya, and it's a process that helps you get centered inside quickly and get back in alignment with the divine. So I wanted to teach that today. It's going to take us probably about 5 minutes. I told Kate what I was going to do, and we decided not even to play the piano, just so I'm going to teach you the way I was taught. And like I say in anything else that I teach, try it. If you don't like it, drop it. If it doesn't work for you, okay? So there's two Sanskrit words, and the first one is H-U-A-N-G, Hong. So as you begin to breathe in, you want to say this word to yourself. Hong, Hong. Just let yourself breathe in. And you want to focus your breath and where it enters the nostrils. Because we know focus and concentration helps bring the mind to the energy. So just practice that a couple times. Breathing in, Hong. And get a nice flow, 3-4 count to your breathing. And then you want to, on the exhale, you want to breathe out with Sol, S-A-U. So it's breathing in as Hong, breathing out as Sol. Hong, Sol. Hong, Sol. We're actually going to do, I'm going to take the meditation at the very end, but I wanted you to have a chance to practice it before we go in. Now here's a key step. As you get to the place where that's flowing in you, and you want your breathing to be kind of like the waves at the ocean, you want to allow your focus to begin to move up. And allow your focus to move up to the third eye. The third eye, remember, is a little bit above the eyebrows to the very center of the head, which is connected next to the pituitary gland, which is our organ of divinity. But as you begin to breathe up into that, just let that. Now, some people will see light, and some people will feel it. It doesn't matter. But this will take you to that place, okay? So it's Hong on the way in, Sol on the way out. And then we'll move up to the third eye. So we're going to actually do that. So when meditation is mastered, the mind is unwavering, like the flame of a lamp in a windless place. What I love about this practice is I can do it anywhere. I can do it while I'm driving. I can do it while I'm at Walmart, standing in line. I can do it while I'm on the telephone. I can do it while I'm in a meeting. You can do this anywhere you are, and it will immediately take you in and get centered in the divine. All right? So what we're going to do is, after my instruction, I'm just going to get quiet and just let you be there with the energy for a couple minutes, okay? And that'll be our meditation today. So let's go to the stillness. So as you're breathing in, just to the words Hong, and stay with your nostril right there. You want to get centered, focus the mind, and Saw on the way out. Hong, Saw. Now when you're ready or comfortable, let your focus now come up. Rise up from the nostrils to the center, where your third eye is the very center of your frontal lobe. And just keep breathing up to that place. One of the powers of this process is that it allows you to stop the mind from all the thoughts. And while you're doing that, if you find yourself engaged in thought, just come back to focus on the breathing and focus on saying those two words.